You ever really stop and think about the difference between a rock and a rabbit? I mean, they're both just a collection of atoms, right? But one is just there, while the other is, alive. So what's the secret ingredient? What's the spark that turns simple, boring matter into a living, breathing thing? Well, today, we're going to dive into the cosmic recipe for life and see if we can piece it all together.
So, back in the 1950s, a couple of scientists, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey, decided to tackle this exact question. They built this wild setup to copy what early Earth was like, a sealed-off world with a mix of simple gases like methane and ammonia, and then they zapped it with sparks to act like lightning. They wanted to see if the basic building blocks of life could just appear. And you know what? It worked. They found amino acids, the little pieces that build proteins, forming all on their own. It was a huge breakthrough. Now, that doesn't mean life literally came from a lightning bolt, but the experiment showed us something absolutely crucial, that you need a jolt of energy to get the chemical ball rolling. And it also pointed us straight to the one element that is the foundation for, well, pretty much all life as we know it.
And that element, of course, is carbon. If you're building life, carbon is your go-to Lego block. It is the absolute backbone of everything that's alive. See, in chemistry, we basically split molecules into two camps. You've got the inorganic world, that's your simple stuff like water or carbon dioxide. And then you have the organic world. And what makes something organic is that it's built around a carbon skeleton, leading to these bigger, way more complex molecules.
So what's carbon's superpower? It's all about its ability to connect. A single carbon atom can form 4 super strong, stable bonds with other atoms. This lets it create these incredible structures, long chains, complex branches, and even rings. It's the ultimate connector, the perfect piece for building the massive, complicated machinery that life needs to work.
But here's where the cosmic recipe gets a little tricky, a little weird. It's not just about what ingredients you have, it's about how you put them together. Sometimes the exact same set of atoms can create 2 totally different molecules.
Think about your hands for a second. They're perfect mirror images of each other, right? But now, try to place your right hand perfectly on top of your left, palm to palm, fingers aligned. You can't. It doesn't work. This whole idea is called chirality, and believe it or not, it's a huge deal in biology.
In the world of chemistry, molecules that have this handedness are called enantiomers. They're identical in every single way, same atoms, same bonds, but they're mirror images. You've got the left-handed version and the right-handed version. A great example of this is a molecule we all know and love, glucose, plain old sugar. You can see there's a D-glucose and an L-glucose. They look like twins in a mirror. But here's the crazy part. Your body can only get energy from D-glucose. It completely ignores the other one. It just goes to show you how incredibly picky life is about shape. And this isn't just some fun fact for a trivia night. Getting the handedness of a molecule wrong can have absolutely devastating consequences. Back in the 1950s, a drug called thalidomide was given to pregnant women to help with morning sickness. The thing is, it was sold as a mix of both its left and right-handed forms. The R form worked just fine. It was a good sedative. But its mirror image, the S form, was a teratogen, a compound that caused catastrophic birth defects. This awful tragedy was a brutal lesson in just how much a tiny, tiny change in a molecule's 3D shape really matters. It can be the difference between a cure and a catastrophe. Okay, so we've got our main ingredient, carbon, and we get that shape is everything. Now let's see how these rules come together to build the 4 major types of molecules that make up every living thing on this planet. All life on Earth is built from just 4 main kinds of big organic molecules, or macromolecules. We've got carbohydrates for fuel and structure, lipids for storing energy and building membranes, proteins, which are the tiny machines doing all the work, and nucleic acids like DNA, which carry the blueprint for the whole operation. So, how does nature build these huge, complex molecules from smaller bits and pieces? It uses this wonderfully simple trick called dehydration synthesis. Basically, to link 2 small molecules together, it just pulls out a water molecule. That's it. It's like a kind of molecular glue, building up life 1 drop of water at a time. And that brings us to the single most important rule in this entire cosmic recipe book. This is the central idea that controls everything from a tiny enzyme to an entire person. So here's the bottom line, the thing you have to remember. In biology, a molecule's 3D shape decides what it does. Its structure dictates its function. An enzyme needs a perfectly shaped little pocket to grab its target. A hormone has to fit into its receptor just right, like a key in a lock. You change that shape, even a little bit, and you break the machine. Let's use proteins as our example. It all starts at the primary level, just a simple string of little building blocks called amino acids. Then, that string starts to coil and fold into some basic secondary shapes. After that, those shapes bend and twist all over each other to form a complex 3D tertiary structure. And sometimes you get multiple folded chains that all come together to form a massive quaternary machine, like hemoglobin carrying oxygen in your blood. But what happens if you make a mistake in that very first step, in that initial string of amino acids? Well, take a look at this protein here. It's called CFTR. On the left, that's how it's supposed to look. It folds into a perfect little channel that lets salt move across our cell membranes. But on the right, yeah, that's what happens when it misfolds. It's completely broken. This is the molecular story of cystic fibrosis. It all comes down to a tiny error in the genetic code, which means just one amino acid is missing from that initial string. That's it. One single mistake. And because of it, the entire protein folds up wrong. The channel doesn't work, mucus in the lungs gets dangerously thick and sticky, and that leads to chronic, life-threatening infections. It is a powerful, devastating example of why structure is absolutely everything. Okay, so this is all really fascinating, but why does all this deep chemistry actually matter in the real world? Well, it gives us some incredibly powerful tools to understand the world around us. Think about it. Every single microbe has its own unique biochemical recipe, and we can actually read it. In a modern lab, we can identify a bacterium by analyzing its specific protein signature, or by mapping out its unique fats. We can even spot the specific sugars on its surface. This lets doctors diagnose infections incredibly fast, all because we understand life's 4 basic building blocks. So we've seen that life is built from carbon. It's shaped by chemistry, and its function is defined by its form. It all follows this predictable and in some ways really simple set of rules, which leaves us with the biggest question of all, doesn't it? If we know the entire recipe, what's that final mysterious spark that breathes fire into the equation and makes something truly alive?